Okay, hi. I'm Ralph Baker, and this is Trump and the Global Economy, where we discuss the president's policies and how they affect the economy and the community. And we also discuss other things important to the community, including the investment community. And today we're going to discuss Teva and how Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow is. Chatter suggests he's an investor in the company, and we're trying to explain his hype over Teva. So I have with me Torian Mitchell, of course. And for those who don't know, Teva is pretty much a generic drug manufacturer. About over 60% of its revenue comes from generics. And I first discovered the company a couple of years ago when it had a blockbuster drug called Copaxone, which treated multiple sclerosis, and it was facing generic competition um, from Mylan. And it also come off of a big acquisition of Allergan's generics business, which was a bust. And shortly after they bought it, the pricing for the generics market tanked due to various reasons. One of the main reasons was that the FDA started approving drugs faster to try to bring the cost down, which also hurt pricing for generics. And I also question whether just because of that acquisition alone and the debt that Teva took on to buy Allergan's generics business, whether Teva was even a going concern anymore. So high level of debt, I suggested that the debt was junk status. People screamed at me. Investors screamed at me, tried to silence me as usual. And I actually did. I did think I wrote an article that his debt was a junk status. And somebody complained, I had to edit it, and then next thing you know, within a week, it was downgraded to junk status, like I suggested. And then you had the generic competition from Copaxone. So new CEO Kåre Schultz was under a lot of pressure to fix the company and fix a lot of holes in the leaky boat. That included, cutting costs, hiving off assets to pay our debt, and to hopefully keep Copaxone around as long as possible in the face of generic competition, and to lay off a lot of people to help preserve margins. And look up a couple years later, and Teva seems to be doing fine. Um, so a little over a year ago, LSU won the national championship, and there was a lot of chatter about how Joe Burrow was a GOAT. And I wrote an article saying that, forget this guy, Joe Burrow, that if Corey Schultz could cut an opiate deal and keep Teva afloat, that he would be the GOAT. And it got a lot of attention from the LSU football community. And then chatter suggests that now Joe Burrow is an investor in Teva, and we sort of want to explain his hype over Teva. I'm hyped about Teva too now. I think things are much different now, and then his business prospects have changed. So a high level, Teva Q1 revenue is about $4 billion, down 9%. Again, it has a lot of exposure to generics. It also was hurt by the pandemic, as less people are having doctor visits. Drugs that it sells. EBITDA was about $1.1 billion, down 15%, and the EBITDA margin was 28%, down about 200 basis points, which was pretty respectable given the challenges the company faces. The other challenge is that it has open exposure, and state AGs cut a global opiate deal with Johnson & Johnson and the large distributors earlier this week. So there could be a light at the end of the tunnel for Teva and also for Endo International, some of the smaller firms looking to cut opiate deals. And that has kept the uncertainty over the opiate exposure has kept Teva has kept the stock falling or remain flat over the past 3 or 4 years. So there could be some relief for investors. The other thing is that Teva has a high debt load. Its debt's about $25 billion, down from $27 billion a couple of years ago. So it's been slowly paying debt, and I think that's a big plus for the company. As it pays debt, that helps the equity value of the company over time. So if it can maintain EBITDA or even grow EBITDA and continue to pay debt, I think that would be a major plus for the company. I think you see the shares of the stock rise over time. One thing that I noticed over the past couple of days is that short sellers have been constantly dumping shares onto the market to keep Teva's share price depressed, which to me is a red flag that they may be nervous about what could happen to the stock once an opiate deal is set. So, for instance, over the past few days, they've sold 1.6 million shares, 2.3 million, 1.8 million, 1 million, and 1.5 million shares short to keep the Teva depressed. So, I think this could be opportunity for a short squeeze, a violent short squeeze, because it traded above $20 a share prior to the opiate overhang, and now it's below, almost criminal. It trades at about just under 7 times run rate EBITDA. So that's sort of the backdrop. I'll let Torian speak to what his thoughts on Teva at first blush.
Yeah, actually, it's been a minute since I've really been kind of in the weeds with Teva. You know, I want to say that was back in 2015, 2016, when healthcare was really, especially biopharma, you had companies like Johnson & Johnson, AbbVie, they could almost do no wrong. Teva was that were experiencing, astronomical growth. And as we've seen, at last, 6 years now, 5, 6 years, care as a sector has not overall performed pretty well. It's taken a nosedive largely. So it's been challenging to see are amongst the ashes. We've kind of pointed out Endo was one of those phoenixes. Really, I don't think that they were ever really ever down too far, as most analysts were just kind of dumping on them. I feel that Teva is slightly in the same category, or looking a bit shaky, simply because of the overall generics market, what was happening to it, price cutting, harken that back to when Gilead Sciences came out with Sovaldi. And I think 2015, and the conversation of, frankly, astronomical, pricing drugs were the hot topic. But not only was it a hot topic, and politically, conversation within Congress, every few years, we're constantly having these conversations simply because, one, just between 2015 and 2019, Kaufman Center identified that the price of healthcare premiums have 4%. So it isn't a conversation that is just a conversation. It does have a material reality. So in other words, that's really when I first noticed the kind of the decline. And I think it was just really of what was happening within the as a whole, not really necessarily that Teva was making bad moves, even with the Allergan buyout. I really say that was necessarily the worst. You can certainly justify it with board members that, if you're kind of on the inside looking out, what can you do to one, continue growth? Obviously, shareholder value is something that will always be the centerpiece to any CEO. And the Allergan buyout could easily be justified as such, kind of taking advantage of what seemed to be a market opportunity. Right around that same time, though, corporate debt was an unprecedented increase. No other time in history has corporate debt been as high, really starting around 2016, 2017, but not really being noticed as fervently until about 2019, 2020. The ability for companies to pay back is challenging. How do you pay back corporate debt when you have a declining market, when you have declining prices, market because one, healthcare has continued to take a increased wallet share. So all of that to say that even in spite of all of those external factors that have happened within the industry overall, within the healthcare sector overall, I think Teva is in a prime to kind of make a bounce. The last, really want to say like year and a half, Teva has been on a steady decline in terms of price action, with some few bounces, we call it dead cat bounce, here and there, but still not any price action that would necessarily justify where the actual company is. Quite often we talk about like there's a true disconnect within the market. And, for those that have watched the market, so whether, you're an investor, whether you're a day trader, swing trader, one of the things that you have to take notice of over the last 18 months is this disconnect with the market. The prices within the market do not really reflect fair value for the company. We see pricing on companies, even within the healthcare sector, within biopharma, that will continue to rise. And it's hard to justify why you're a triple digit stock when you only got one contract. I continue to say it. I could beat my chest about it because it does what has been happening over the last 18 months, where we're seeing stocks that have no justification. Why are you at $50 a share in 24? What happened within the company that you were $4 at 9 a.m. and then as soon as the bell opens, you shoot to $30 a share, $40 a share, $50, and you got a few million in cash on hand. Meanwhile, you have companies like Endo, like Teva, where you have cash on hand, even in the declining EBITDA has declining, but it's still not such a decline where this stock should be trading below $10 a share. This is barely above penny stock level. As I say it time and time again, there's a difference between penny stocks and companies, valuable companies trading at penny stock levels. And this is one of those companies that Teva is trading barely above a penny stock level. And I really, think it's a matter of, short sellers, I think, just kind of taking advantage that most folks aren't really paying a whole lot of attention to Teva. So, why not feed at the trough, right? It's like, you can get away with it. I'm not really sure that Teva is in the best position to, maybe buying back some shares, bringing the stock price up. The debt is a concern, although they have been steadily paying. But, certainly, it's certainly a question. Is there a better move for them as an investment into the company? Is there a better move than doing stock buyback, triggering a short squeeze, and at least getting this stock to fair value? So I really think that's kind of the top of mind question.
And we talked about this on Endo as well, that as long as this opiate litigation remains out there, nobody can really acquire Teva if they wanted to. So we can talk to a blunt face. Nobody's going to make an acquisition of Teva and say that it's undervalued and acquired a company for much less than fair value. because nobody knows what the opiate litigation is. Until they do, nobody's, it could always trade below what we think fair value is. And short sellers have taken advantage by, looks like they've been manipulating stock down. It takes these wild swings, like, 1 quarter is trading at $9, next quarter is trading at 12, then next quarter trades back, and you really don't know why. But just looking at it over the past couple of days, it seems like the short interest has really ramped up, and short sellers may be again trying to protect their short position, as it looks like there's going to be some ability on opiate litigation and maybe even an opiate settlement. I know that Core Shows has been very aggressive in negotiating, trying to negotiate down Teva's opiate claims. He's curious what's going on in the United States, that people are asking him to pay legal fees for selling legal drugs, paying opiate lawsuits for selling legal drugs. And he swear that Teva there's been no wrongdoing. He doesn't mind helping to pay for the U.S.'s opiate crisis or heroin crisis, however you want to call it. He doesn't mind helping to fund that, helping to pay that, but he doesn't think it should be, an enormous amount of money. So he's $400 million plus some free drugs. How he looks at it is that the U.S. has a drug problem, and they want the opiate companies to help fund it, which I agree with them. And you can go to court to do it, or you can do it through a negotiation. But apparently, they seem to be at an impasse, particularly in New York. I understand that they may even go to a mediation, because a lot of the other companies have already, again, the bigger companies have already come to an amount with New York, and also on a global basis. I think New York's got over $1 billion from the distributors and Johnson & Johnson. And I think they may go to some type of mediation with Teva and Endo. So as long as this opiate question mark remains out there, Teva can trade at what we think is a nonsensical value. However, one day I'm assuming that there's going to be an announcement that a deal has been struck on a global basis for Teva, and the stock is going to bounce. It's about 34 million shares sold short, which is maybe 3% of the shares outstanding, but it may not be a large amount on the surface. But again, Teva traded above $20 a share, and I don't think a few years ago, I don't think its business prospects were better then than they are now. I think they're in a pretty good position where they've cut costs, and they're taking out a lot of uncertainty over how they'll respond to, how they'll survive after Copaxone generic competition. And they've proven they can cut costs and hive off assets to pay debt. And they've been slowly paying debt. It seems like they can handle that debt. So each year, if they reduce debt by $1 billion, that's helping the equity value. So I think companies, again, worth a lot more today than it was a couple of years ago. And it seems to be the only thing holding it back is this opiate settlement. And short sellers seem to be purposely trying to keep the stock depressed couple of weeks as this opiate settlement seems to be coming to a head. So I'm hoping that the company can agree to an amount with the state AGs across the country, and I hope it's something. I think it's going to be something that Teva can live with, given the fact that they've already put an offer on the table for about a couple $100 million and some free drugs. So I think this also has a potential for a short squeeze, not as attractive as Endo, but squeeze, given again the fact that it traded above $20 a share a few years ago, and there is some sizable short interest. So that's sort of seemed to be my take on Teva. I think the stock should get some more visibility and get some more eyes on it, because if you get in now, you can get in before it actually bounces. Who knows how high it can go? Whether it can go to 20 or even higher than 20. So I think it hasn't gotten as much visibility as Endo. We haven't talked about it as much, but I think it will over the next couple of weeks, as more chatter of an opiate settlement heats up, and that seems to be likely why Joe Burrow likes the stock. He could be almost as good an investor. He could be almost as good an investor as he is a quarterback on Cincinnati, wouldn't have him throw the ball 50, 60 times a game, maybe protect him a little better. But I think she hand the ball to Joe Mixon a little more, use him more. But that's sort of my take on Teva. I think it's maybe not as attractive as Endo from an evaluation standpoint, but I think it's probably the next best position to benefit from a potential short squeeze once the opiate litigation comes to a head. I'm assuming it's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. And we talked about Endo ad nauseum, but today they settled with Tennessee, and more shares were dumped into the market from hedge funds who have a sizable short position, either because they try to protect their short position or trying to prevent a short squeeze next in line. That's just my.
No, I mean, I agree that I think state AGs are additionally motivated. As I've said before, states are broke. States need money. And I was not getting the impression from the Biden administration that there's any pressure federally as it was under the Trump administration, who was pushing for quicker settlement than what it has taken since Biden's administration has come into office. Always got the impression that it was no longer for them, and certainly the prioritization of these settlements seemed to kind of take a back seat. We saw these things stall, even with Endo and their case where they're due to a procedural rule. It's almost boggling how you already have companies that have admitted guilt. I don't want to say guilt. I'll say they admitted participation. They admitted participation. They willingly come to the table, open up negotiations, and you just had stalling by these. And I'm sure that state governors, are also keeping up some pressure because they're the ones that have to deal with the constituency. And seeing municipalities, counties across their states that are not only dealing with the results of the opioid crisis, but then the further decline labor due to stagnation in wages, due to rising costs, rising rental costs. So you just have this perfect storm that frankly governors, and I'm sure mayors, city managers alike, that have been pushing, because this is an opportunity for their states to get frankly recouped and hope to fill some of the coffers to be able to get folks the rehab that they need, access to mental health services, social services, etc. So I'm just happy that this is finally to a close, because we need the assistance and help. And I agree that once this thing is final, settlements are finalized, I think we do see a rise. We saw a little bit of that from Endo today, as you mentioned. I think as soon as the results from Tennessee settlement came, we saw essentially Endo pop close to $1. And shorts are covering. I mean, the thing that we've been, like you said, we've been talking about Endo. Seems like we've been the only people talking about Endo for some time.
Oh, Victory has 1,000 fathers. You know that, right? Everybody online is talking about this play they were talking about.
Right. Exactly.
Everybody's talking about this play they've been alerting the public about. So like 100 people called Endo.
Yeah. But I think that we see the same with I do think that we see the same with Teva. Like you said, they're not in as good a position. One, for the short squeeze, and two, just as company valuation, they have a little bit less cash on hand, uh, a larger amount of corporate debt um, than Endo, but relatively, they've been doing well. Management has done well keeping this company not only just kind of surviving, but thriving the last few years, restructuring, cutting cost. So the company has been doing well. It makes no sense that it's trading where is trading. So as we see, hopefully in the coming weeks with a global settlement, we see Teva a part of that. Whether it's a sympathy play, I think we will see a bit of a sympathy play in the beginning before we start seeing more shorts, frankly, covering their positions, getting prepared for a short squeeze. So whether it reach the potential that Endo has, that's certainly debatable. But I think, frankly, that this year we see both of these companies get much closer to fair value as a result of the opioid settlements and the fact that people will finally start looking at the actual fundamentals of these companies to see that these are deeply undervalued and frankly for no reason. It makes no sense that these companies are that deeply undervalued. But at markets are about finding companies that are undervalued and betting on those companies, betting that the larger market participants will be able to recognize that value and get on board. And frankly, get on board before the train leaves the station. So, I think this is that opportunity to, view Teva, take a look at it, do some of the due diligence. And if folks see the same things that we see, then I think the response is pretty straightforward. It's as we say, a no brainer, right?
Mm.
But I'm sure there will always be Arians and the folks that will see otherwise. But we think that this thing, I think this thing to easily be trading north of $15. Um, especially post a short squeeze, even if it goes to some astro heights that we've been seeing this market has been doing just in the last year, since kind of the GME and meme stock squeeze performances, even if we see such astro heights, I think ultimately it will settle and land at fair value. So, even if that happens to Teva or an Endo, even if one misses that, to the moon trajectory, eventually it will settle much closer to fair value because folks will do some due diligence, be triggered to really look at the fundamentals of the company, look at the management of the company, look at the pro formas, look at financial statements, and kind of doing that homework and really seeing that both of these companies are pretty much on a trajectory. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Okay. A couple things. I think when we're the past couple of weeks is that shorts don't like to. They will increase their short position to depress these stocks and protect their short interests and prevent a short squeeze almost, at any cost. And they can dump more shares on the market than, retail investors can actually, buy. I mean, again, Endos, they've dumped the past couple Tuesday and Wednesday alone, they dumped like about the market. They probably dumped another 15 million shares today, and they've been dumping shares on the market for Teva as well. So it seems irrational, but that's just my logic. It seems like they'll do anything to protect their short interest and create a short squeeze and live to fight another day or another week. Hopefully that maybe some bad news to come out about these companies, or hopefully there's some weak hands who will sell their shares cheaply. The other thing is that a lot of people who are coming into these stocks are learning about these stocks in the chat rooms, and sort of these people who help drive these meme stocks higher. A common narrative from them is that we're not investors. They probably don't look at valuations much. I think they look at more at momentum. So as long as these stocks can generate some momentum, I think they'll continue to attract day traders and these guys in chat rooms who will buy the stock and hold it. So we'll see where that goes. Another thing I'm trying to figure out is how do states, after they've gotten, $26 billion from Johnson & Johnson, McKesson, Cardinal Health, AmerisourceBergen, and another $6 billion from Mallinckrodt and Purdue Pharma, how do they go to court and pound the table against Endo and Teva? Say you owe us money for the opiate crisis. Because I mean, I'm not sure why they won't just settle this and move on and not become any more of a nuisance to the public and to the investment community. Teva and Endo, probably smaller companies, and they probably have less resources than those other companies. So it just seems to me that once you've gotten to $30 billion on the table and to help, fund treatment and prevention, and to follow Ohio's example, I'm trying to figure out how do you fix your face and go to court and pound the table that you're gonna really put the screws to Endo and Teva for another couple $100 million. But that's just my take. So again, I think we both see why Joe Burrow is excited about the stock. But anyway, so this is Trump and the G, and Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow is hyped about Teva. So we'll see what happens. All we can do is talk about it and see where it goes from there, and make the investment community aware about these opportunities. So that's basically it. I want to thank Torian Mitchell again for his input. So that's Trump and the G. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.